Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I dive on into today's review, do want to remind you that if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and you would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a couple of ways. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal, or becoming a monthly member of our Patreon. And you'll find links to those in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you will find an invite link to our Discord server. Be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Today, I'm going to be sharing my review of Starfinder 2nd Edition Murder in Metal City from Paizo Inc. This deluxe box adventure is available now. Carries an MSRP of $39.99. You can grab just the PDF alone for $19.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Murder in Metal City for Starfinder 2nd Edition. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Paizo Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the adventure and every handout and so forth, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find in Murder in Metal City. Then, of course, keep in mind, this is an adventure. So if you are a player and your game master has picked up Murder in Metal City, just haven't started running it yet, or maybe they're talking about getting this, you have been warned. There are going to be some minor spoilers ahead. I will do my best to stay mostly spoiler-free, but there will be some spoilers in this review, so you have been warned. All right, let's dive on in, start taking a peek at what's inside this box. First of all, it's a pretty sturdy box, although it does have an insert that takes up more than half the depth of the box. I thought it's kind of strange. They could have probably put this in a 1-inch deep box as opposed to a 2-inch box. That's fine. So we're going to start off. We've got handouts here. These are all for our players. Some have a little bit of artwork. Most do not. And the paper stock is pretty flimsy. So what I would recommend is maybe have a couple of large envelopes, manila envelopes possibly, that you could keep these in. One for yourself as the game master, one for the players, for them to keep these in, because I could see these getting beat up pretty quickly at your game table. We also have some item cards as well as NPC cards. These are sturdier than the handouts, of course. And these are really nicely done. I like these quite a bit. I am curious, though, if, like other editions of Pathfinder, as well as the first edition of Starfinder, if we're going to see decks of item cards, equipment cards, possibly bestiary cards. Are they going to be this size, or are they going to be kind of the traditional tarot card size that we have seen from Paizo Inc. But all in all, nicely done. Plenty of information here for us, and good way for the players to visualize various different NPCs and pieces of equipment. Then we have 6 pre-generated characters, including one from the new Ancestry, which is included in Murder in Metal City. And I have to say, these are an interesting variety of characters. They are all level 1 because this is an introductory adventure. It's important to keep in mind, though, this is not a starter set. I know there are some outlets out there which are advertising Murder in Metal City as the Starfinder 2nd Edition starter set. It is not. This is a deluxe boxed adventure. If you pick this up thinking this is a starter set, you are going to be sorely disappointed. And I don't understand why some of these outlets are indicating this as a starter set. Paizo Inc. has never presented this as a starter set. It's always been a deluxe box adventure, like we're going to see for Pathfinder. I think it's next month that we're going to see a deluxe box adventure. Not a starter set. Key giveaway right off the bat. There's no dice in this box. I have yet to see a role-playing game starter set for a game that utilizes dice that did not include a set of dice. I gotta be honest, I think some of these outlets that are saying that this is a starter set are just doing that as clickbait, because I will say the outlets I've seen, I'm not going to name any names, but the outlets I've seen that are calling this a starter set do tend to be those outlets that inundate you with ads and pop-ups and everything else when you try to read an article on their websites. We'll also get a player character profile sheet for the Game Master, quick notes about each of the player characters. You can track different things like experience points and the investigation as it continues, because this is a murder mystery that the players are going to be investigating. We also get a bunch of tokens. These are nice and thick. The cardstock's nice and thick here. We do get some extras as well. So we've got some tokens here of creatures that aren't in this adventure, which I thought that was pretty nice. Although, kind of curious, we have tokens here. Normally we see pawns with the Paizo Inc. releases. Are we moving to tokens? I don't know. And we also have a sturdy flip mat. Now, this is not the same material as we see the flip mats for Pathfinder and Starfinder. This is more paper, but it is treated. That's why you see there's a bit of a sheen. So there are a couple of combat locations which are on this flip mat. And then, of course, we have the adventure. Now, the adventure is in 3 parts. And I will say, reading through this, I had the impression that maybe at one point, Paizo Inc. was considering utilizing this as a starter set, because there are some references in the game material that makes you think that. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard on this adventure to bring this to life. This clocks in at 64 pages. So this is a murder mystery. This is an introductory adventure. So what this adventure looks to do is introduce the players and game masters to various different concepts that you will encounter in Starfinder 2nd Edition adventures. So we do have combat encounters. We do have social encounters. We have some investigation aspects to this because this is a murder mystery. The player characters are drawn in. They meet in a tavern. Yes, I know. It's like, yes, another introductory adventure where they all start off in a bar or tavern or inn. But I will say that they're all brought there by a friend of theirs. They all have a mutual friend who then they find out has been murdered. As soon as the player characters find that out, they're attacked by a drone and the adventure is off and running. So the first chapter of the 3 chapters here is going to be devoted to the players introducing their characters to each other, getting a better feel for the group dynamics, as well as kind of investigating what's going on with their friend who happens to be a scientist, a professor who is searching for these various different artifacts. We get a pretty cool villain with this. And the reason why I mention that is because while the villain does terrible things, such as murdering the player character's friend, he actually has good reason for doing it. So I do dig how the adventure ends, because it's going to leave the players with a conundrum. Are they going to do what they should typically do? Because if they do, that's going to lead to some very bad events down the timeline. Whereas if maybe they show the villain a little bit of mercy, but still make sure that they're paying for their crimes, things will have a better outcome. So I do like the way that that plays out. I also like that the player characters get framed for a crime. They don't get framed for the murder, but they do get framed for another crime. So I thought that was kind of interesting too. So all in all, the adventure itself, solid, just not spectacular. But what it's supposed to be doing is introducing players and game masters to how a Starfinder 2nd Edition adventure is presented, how it's laid out, and the various different aspects of the game that you'll be encountering multiple times during a game session. Speaking of game sessions, I would think, depending on how long your sessions are, maybe 3 sessions tops, maybe 1 session per chapter. I would say some of that also has to do with the amount of combat that maybe the player characters look to avoid, because there are some situations where the player characters can negotiate, they can parlay with some potentially hostile NPCs. Of course, could lead to combat, could lead to coming to an understanding. So if you're not diving into combat, of course, you're going to get more done in that session as far as the adventure goes. We also get a brand new ancestry. I like this ancestry quite a bit. It's pretty cool. It is a sentient plant. And as we see with the ancestries in the player core, we get 4 pages devoted to it and got some pretty cool ancestry feats too. And that is a peek inside the adventure. So you've seen what's inside Murder in Metal City for Starfinder 2nd Edition. Let's swing on over to the other camera. I'm going to share some final thoughts as well as my review score. First of all, I can't stress enough, once again, this is not a starter set. No matter what anybody out there is telling you, this is not a starter set for Starfinder 2nd Edition. It is a deluxe box adventure. And I think Paizo did a pretty nice job with this. I do like the additional components, the pre-generated characters, all pretty interesting, all pretty varied as well. Everybody's going to have their role in the party. We get 6 of them. So the adventure is really designed probably for 4 player characters. So you've got some variety there. Now, of course, if you have the player core, there's nothing stopping you from rolling up your own characters and utilizing those. So all in all, I like all the extras. I do wish the handouts were a little thicker paper stock. I mean, they are pretty flimsy. I could see them really getting trashed pretty easily at the game table. But the tokens, the flip mat, all really nice. The adventure itself, I'm going to say it again, solid, if not spectacular. It gets the job done. It is an introductory adventure. It's, I don't think, really designed to knock anybody's socks off. It does go about its business in yeoman-like fashion. So it's a good adventure. There are some aspects to the adventure that I do like, especially the conclusion where the player characters have a decision to make. There are some other set pieces in the adventure that I like. There are other things that I'm kind of like, ho-hum. Oh, well, you're throwing that in because we need a combat encounter now. But for the most part, not a bad adventure. Not a great one either, but solid nonetheless. So taking all of this into account, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Starfinder 2nd Edition Murder in Metal City a 7 out of 10. It's a pretty good deluxe adventure box set. I'm kind of curious what we're going to see for the Pathfinder deluxe box set. It is not a starter set. You do need to have the Starfinder 2nd Edition player core in order to utilize this. You do not need to have the GM core, which is arriving supposedly at the end of this month. So keep that in mind. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.